This is going to be the gray man concept part 3. Just when you thought there wasn't going to be any more. This is specifically geared toward how to gain information and avoid giving information based on how you communicate with people, how you ask questions, and how you deflect questions without being noticed. These basic ideas and techniques are the beginning stages of the questioning patterns and how you gain intelligence information from interrogation detainee subjects and sources and assets when you're doing clandestine intelligence work, essentially being a spy. So maybe that just makes it sound cooler, I don't know. The biggest thing people do in this country is ask yes or no questions. They ask questions in such a way that the most logical answer anybody's going to give is yes or no. And I don't mean in a way like when the media asks a question that's completely irrelevant, trying to force a yes or no when it doesn't matter. I just mean normal everyday things like, did you go do this last night? That's a yes or no question. You know, are you, is you, can you, may you, will you, have you, don't you? All those are interrogative, I can't even say the word, interrogative beginnings to yes or no questions. It takes you longer to get information. It gives them more time to consciously or subconsciously react to what you're asking, figure it out or what it is, and come up with their own plan to avoid it, even if they don't mean to. It's inefficient, and it wastes time. So, you want to ask questions that require a narrative response. And we briefly talked about that when people give up information in conversations they don't mean to. Who, what, where, why, when, and how are the basic beginnings to questions to give a narrative response. Now look at this from a standpoint of people lying. Like let's say your kids, or I'm sure you can at least understand the concept of kids. Did you go out with Bobby last night after we told you not to? That's a yes or no question. Makes it easy to lie. When you can lie with a no, you can maintain consistency because you don't have to tell a story. You don't have to create or fabricate a pattern that you have to try and prove. A better question would be, you were seen with Bobby out last night after we told you not to go. Where were you guys going? What did you guys do? Now the thing is, that question could be a total lie. It's up to you whether or not you want to lie. But you just opened the whole door. Now when this happens, all kinds of things happen. They have to come up with a narrative response. Speech patterns, physical manifestations like sweating, shivering, shaking, fidgeting hands, all these other kinds of things. There's plenty more. But all of a sudden, they're now in a self-defense mode, even in the subconscious, trying to hide or control. We won't say hide necessarily. They're trying to control the conversation and situation. But you are actually in control. When you say yes or no, they're totally in control if those are the types of questions you ask. So, flip the tables. You're being asked questions, even if it's not being invasive or somebody trying to find information out. They ask something that's a simple yes or no question. You answer it. Did you go out with Bobby last night? No. And then typically, in that situation, if you picture it, people would stare at you as if it's obvious what they really mean or infer. And while you may know or have an idea of that, I always stand firm as though you are required to engage me further to get more answers. Because the logical next step for somebody who believes a person is going to continue speaking would be, no, I did this instead. But most people don't actually do that. And whether or not you do that is not an indicator of telling the truth or lying. It takes a lot more than that to figure out if somebody's telling the truth or lying unless you absolutely know. Those are some very basic questioning things. Play that game with your kids or with some kids. And then, now, another way to work information is getting information from more than one source. This is a simple technique I use in interrogation, but you can actually use it with people that are just, telling you two different stories about what happened to that party that you didn't get invited to, that you should have been invited to, or they were in the meeting on why you didn't get that promotion, and you can talk to them separately to figure out what exactly is going on. And even if you can't figure out the answer, you can at least figure out a lot about that person and how loyal they are. Whether that's loyal to you or loyal to the information or another organization. So, it's easy to imagine two adults in different places. Let's use kids because the subject's more fun. Take two kids that you have. You come home and a lamp's broken, something's broken, they did something wrong. First thing you do is not ask or say anything and stop them if they try to, because their stories are already coordinated, or somebody's about to throw somebody on their bus, under the bus, and they may or may not be the guilty party. You put them in two separate rooms, and definitely not bedrooms, not their bedrooms anyway. You put them in rooms that a door can be closed, that they know they're not supposed to screw around with stuff, that's going to make them a little bit uncomfortable, and that if they cannot hear what's going on outside, or at least you try not to let them hear. In this situation, you go in, you just look at the first kid, straight faced as you can, tell me what happened. They're going to tell you a story. When they're done, just say, okay. No matter what they tell you, don't stop, don't ask for more details, just let it happen. Say, okay. Walk out of the room and close the door. Whatever you do for the next 15 or 20 minutes doesn't matter as long as nobody can hear you and you don't go talk to anybody. You let them sweat. Because all that's going to happen is the second child is going to think you're in with the first child the whole time. The first child is going to think you're in with the second child the whole time. And that's where problems can start, especially for the person who's guilty. Then you go into the second one. They tell you a story. Let's say it's damn near the same story. Okay. When they're done talking, you say something that sounds like, all right, well, that doesn't sound exactly, or that doesn't sound like what I was just told by your sister or whatever. Even if it does, lie to them. Then you walk out no matter what they say. And then I'd wait another 20, 30 minutes. And then pick which one you want to go back into after that. Eventually somebody's going to roll. And you'll get the same stories out of the two of them. From there, there's many different things and techniques you can do from there. Lots of options. You can do the same thing with adults when you're trying to find out information similar to the examples I gave you. And people I know that are interrogators that have kids, they're usually pretty good kids, especially if they're teenagers, because they know what's going to happen. They know they're going to get caught. They know their parents have the skill and ability to figure out if they're lying. So they don't even screw around. You can use these same questioning patterns, though, to gain information on anything, anywhere, at any time from anyone. You just have to be careful about how you do it. You might have 5 questions to get narrative answers, but you don't want to rapid fire those in a row, because that's going to give away what you're doing. So, in the clandestine world, we do a thing called elicitation. Elicitation is getting information from somebody, but getting it in such a way that if you do it well, they don't know what information you were trying to get. And if you do it really well, they actually think you were trying to get something else you were not. So the idea is to have conversations, pick little pieces out they're saying, maybe eventually throw in a direct question, and to slowly get the information you're after over a series of minutes, a series of hours, a series of days or weeks, a series of emails, whatever. And the longer you take to do it, the easier it can be. However, it's longer to get the information. It's something that has to be practiced and cannot really be explained more than that without giving a demonstration, which I'm not prepared to do at this time because it'd be better if I had somebody else. But you need to consider that when you get to the point of realizing everybody's asking yes or no questions and expecting you to give up information they haven't asked, and how easily they will give narrative responses to your questions that are not yes or no, but are driven to give a narrative response. And while you're trying to figure out how to elicit information and get better at it, the one thing you'll realize is you'll start looking at these people that you're talking to, or talking to you, or talking to other people, and trying to figure out if they're trying to elicit information. And it all of a sudden becomes so obvious how bad people are in this country at asking questions to try to get information and make it look like they're not trying to get that information. You'll just wake up one day and be like, oh my God, people are idiots. It happens to me all the time. So, there's a little bit on questioning that helps you with a lot of practice to elicit information, and it's perfect for the gray man scenario. Whether it's shit hit the fan, you're being a gray man out trying to gain intelligence in a town, or you're on the run for whatever reason, or trying to evade surveillance and you need information, or you hear people talking and you start learning how to pick information out, piece it together, who's trying to help who, what can you get to help you, while maintaining that entire status of being gray and completely irrelevant.